Welcome to this explainer. Listen, I am incredibly excited about today's topic because we're about to unpack a fundamental mindset shift. Like a shift so big, it might just make you completely rethink the items sitting in your Amazon cart right now. We're going to look at the definitive spending habits of the wealthy versus the broke, and specifically, we're focusing on the powerful distinction between buying status and buying tools. And hey, this isn't about judging anyone's lifestyle at all. It's really about mapping out the underlying psychological and financial patterns that dictate who actually builds wealth over time and who just looks like they do. All right, to really grasp this, picture this scenario. Two people are leaving a car dealership on the exact same afternoon. Buyer A drives off in a brand new, fully loaded SUV, financed over 72 months, right? They feel like they have absolutely made it, even if those monthly payments are going to make driving that thing incredibly uncomfortable. Meanwhile, buyer B leaves in a 7-year-old sedan with 90,000 miles on it, but it's paid for entirely in cash. They probably feel, well, nothing in particular. But statistically speaking, the person in that older, paid-off sedan is far more likely to be the millionaire. You see, it all comes down to sequencing. The wealthy buy appreciating assets first, and they only buy depreciating ones, like cars, when it barely even dents their net worth.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this brings us to the core thesis of our entire explainer. While people who are struggling financially often buy toys for, momentary entertainment, the wealthy are absolutely obsessed with buying tools. So how exactly do the wealthy define a tool? Well, it's governed by a pretty simple rule of 3. A tool is a purchase that does at least one of these things. It makes you money, it saves you time, or it builds a skill. Whether it's software that runs a side business or a slightly more expensive laptop that literally prevents you from pulling your hair out while you're working, these purchases are active. They actively work for you.
Section 1. The quiet luxury trap. So how does this tool mindset redefine everyday purchases? Well, think about clothing. People with a broke mindset often buy visible logos, right? The highly recognizable designer name or the super loud brand blasted right across the chest. Why? Because it acts as a very quick, performative status signal to anyone looking. It proves, quote unquote, that you have money. But the genuinely wealthy, they increasingly buy the exact opposite. They buy high-quality, unbranded basics that look totally unremarkable at a glance. It's this trend called quiet luxury. And the logic here is actually fascinating. When your net worth speaks for itself, you kind of stop needing your t-shirt to speak for you. Buying visible status is for those who feel they need to prove something. Quiet luxury is for those who already have. And we see this exact same dynamic with housing. Often, people who are broke or maybe feeling trapped in the middle class will buy the absolute biggest house the bank will approve them for. They stretch their monthly income to its absolute breaking point just because a bigger house feels like a bigger life. The wealthy, however, tend to buy noticeably below their approved mortgage amount. And this isn't just about being modest. A smaller housing payment is actually a deliberate financial tool. It frees up capital every single month. That extra money is then invested, and over time, that invested capital grows into far more wealth than those extra hundreds of square feet were ever worth. Section 2. Compounding returns. The $20 bet. Let's move to and see how this builds. Stepping away from huge purchases like houses and cars, let's look at the small bets people make every single day. Think about a simple $20 bill. Broke people spend a staggering amount collectively on lottery tickets and scratch-offs. It is a small, repeated bet on a near-impossible shortcut to wealth. The wealthy, on the other hand, take that exact same $20 and spend it on books, courses, and information. They are making a small, repeated bet on compounding knowledge. Now, obviously, neither purchase guarantees you'll get rich by tomorrow morning, but the psychology behind where you place that $20 bet, that dictates your entire financial future. The contrast is just incredibly stark when you actually look at the math. A lottery ticket offers odds measured in the millions to 1. It's essentially a tax on desperation. But investing that same money into learning a new skill, the odds of a return on investment improve every single time you read a new chapter, take a new course, or apply a new concept. One bet relies entirely on blind luck, while the other relies on you. Which one do you think has reliably built fortunes over time? Section 3. Debt, time, and access. Abstract tools. Okay, so far we've talked about physical things, right? But the wealthy also treat abstract concepts entirely differently. Let's talk about debt. The broke mindset frequently uses debt, like maxing out credit cards, to buy clothes, electronics, or vacations. Basically, things that lose value instantly. The wealthy are incredibly selective here. They use debt as an offensive tool rather than falling into it as a trap. They use it primarily to buy things that generate income or grow in value, like a rental property or business equipment. Actually, scratch that. It's not even a moral debate about whether debt is good or bad. It is purely mathematical. Debt for a depreciating item is a guaranteed financial loss, period. Debt for an appreciating asset is a powerful wealth-building tool that actively accelerates your growth. And this brilliantly illustrates how the exact same purchase can be either a complete trap or a massive tool, depending entirely on your intention. Take a moment to think about this dynamic. Someone who is broke buys convenience, like getting fast food, grabbing a rideshare, or hiring a cleaner, impulsively, simply to avoid effort in the moment. But the wealthy? They buy convenience deliberately. They pay for a service specifically because they have a higher value use for the time they just bought back. You see, buying convenience only makes financial sense when that freed up time is weaponized. The wealthy take the 3 hours they saved by not cleaning their house, and they aggressively reinvest it into one of these 3 buckets, putting in extra work hours, building a side business, or resting to avoid costly burnout that would end up hurting their primary income. The actual purchase is identical, right? But the intention ensures that the convenience pays them back way more than it cost them.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the two groups view protecting that hard work. Broke people often skip insurance whenever legally possible, whether that's skipping extended warranties, disability coverage, or higher liability limits. Why? Because the premium feels like a total waste of money today. But rich people use insurance as a highly critical defensive tool. They understand this core definition. Insurance is simply a small, predictable cost that protects against a large, unpredictable one. Listen, when you've spent a decade building a massive net worth, a single lawsuit or unexpected medical event could wipe the whole shebang out. Insurance is the tool that ensures one bad day doesn't erase 10 years of grinding. Finally, let's look at relationships. The broke mindset spends money to maintain their current social circle, matching what friends wear or where they eat just to fit in. But the wealthy use their money as a literal tool for access. They pay for industry conferences, masterminds, and exclusive memberships to buy their way into entirely new rooms. They intentionally seek proximity to mentors and people who are just much further ahead of them. It doesn't look like a physical asset you can hold, but getting into the right room has quietly started more massive fortunes than almost any product ever could. Section 4. Performing over performative. So when we zoom out and look at all of these categories side by side, an undeniable pattern emerges. And the crucial point is this. It all comes down to the difference between performative and performing. A performative purchase, the maxed out SUV, the loud designer logo, the giant house you can barely afford, pays you back only in how it looks to somebody else, and honestly, only for as long as they happen to be looking. But a performing purchase, a tool, an appreciating asset, a mastermind group, or simply a $20 book, that pays you back directly. It pays you in money, in time, in skill, or in opportunity. Now, neither of these instincts makes you a bad person, not at all. But repeated over years and decades, they lead to fundamentally different lives. So I want to leave you with a challenge for the very next time you open your wallet or pull up your favorite shopping app. I want you to look at whatever you are about to buy and ask yourself this one provocative question. Does this purchase actually perform for me, or does it just perform as me? Think about it. The answer to that question might just change your life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.